Hello guys, welcome back to Talking Wolves for this week's match preview. Wolves are travelling to Goodison Park on Saturday for a big game. Both teams on 0 points. Both teams are going to want to get something out of this match. Alongside me today, I'm delighted to have Ellis from the Toffee Blues YouTube channel. Ellis, how you keeping, man?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, all good, thank you. Like I said, it's been a disappointing start for both teams. Wolves have played, two tricky teams in United and Brighton. Everton played probably two teams you would have hoped maybe before the start of the season you could have got something out of in Fulham and Villa. But what's your quick early thoughts on the opening two games of the season so far?
Well, of course, the points tell a story in themselves. We've got no points on the board like you guys, which is definitely not great. But you have scored one more goal than us, so fair play to you for that. We've not got one yet, but yeah, the first game was quite similar to your first game. Actually, we were the better side, deserved a few goals, didn't get any, and then the sucker punch came and Fulham beat us. Second game was just, I really hope, a complete anomaly because the recent away performances at the end of last season were nowhere near as bad as that. And it was just a game where nothing went for us. Individual errors, bad organisation. It really wasn't good. So I'm just
Yeah.
hoping that on Saturday we get something different.
Yeah, I mean, it was we've spoken on your channel as well. I've done a preview if the Wolves fans want to check that out. But our summer has been crazy with management changes and so on. But Everton, the last couple of years, there's just been so much drama, sort of on and off the pitch. And then last year, obviously, we saw Frank Lampard leave his role as manager, and you bring in Sean Dyche. How has Dyche started? What's the sort of noise around him at the moment? Are Everton fans comfortable with him taking the club forward?
Well, yeah, there has been a lot going on in the last few years, and Frank Lampard ended up losing his job because the team simply wasn't good enough anymore, and he couldn't really organise them to a point where they were ready in a Premier League game. And it felt like
Mm,
every game we went into, we weren't going to get anything from. And Sean Dyche came in and has done pretty much what you'd expect him to do, steadied the ship, which is what we needed at the time, kept us in the Premier League on the final day. But I think if we didn't have him, we wouldn't have stayed up. This
yeah.
season, there's a bit more of a negative noise after these, especially after Sunday's game, because that was just awful from the whole team collectively, really. And I think he probably got it wrong in the setup. But I think the general consensus around Everton fans, not that I can speak for all of them, but I think fans like him. They like his straight talking, honest approach. And I feel like we're playing games to kind of maximize the best chance of winning a game rather than trying to play a particular style. His style is nowhere near as bad as the outside football world seem to make out. We quite enjoy it. It's back to front really quick, positive, high pressing when it's good. So I'm happy with him, and I just hope that we can actually have a manager for longer than 1 year for once.
Yeah, I know. Well, obviously, our situation with Lopetegui leaving and O'Neill coming in puts us, we're in the very early stages, so we're not 100% sure on how we're going to be looking. And again, this game against Everton will be an interesting one on the road again. Talk about your transfer business again for Wolves. It's been a very quiet window, disappointing. I'm hoping the last 10 days or so starts to pick things up a little bit, but for you guys, it's not been overly busy as well. We brought Jack Harrison in recently, Ashley Young coming in on a free, Dan Juma on loan, and then Chimiti coming in from Sporting as well. What's your thoughts on the transfer business at Everton so far? And do you think there needs to be some more bodies brought in before the deadline day?
Well, I think, like you, we definitely want some movement over the last few days of the transfer window. We certainly need more. We started with Ashley Young, a 38-year-old left back who might add some much needed experience, to be fair, but it's not inspiring, is it really?
No.
And Arnaut Danjuma did come in, and he's probably the best signing we've made so far, and I think he will do quite well. And he's just reaching peak fitness ready to play against you guys on Saturday. So I'm hoping he starts because he's probably our main attacking threat at the moment. Jack Harrison isn't going to be fit, so you don't have to worry about him at all. We signed him injured, so he's not going to play for quite a while. Chimiti is probably not going to feature, hasn't quite made it yet. He's fitness wise isn't probably there, and I don't think Deitch has built up the trust in such a young player just yet. I think we need a number 9. Everyone knows that. Che Adams looks strongly linked, and we're still just trying to agree a structure of the fee. And you might get lucky or unlucky depending on how good you think Che Adams is, but I don't think he'll be ready in time for Saturday. But other than that, we definitely need a centre back. We definitely need a winger. When we play you on Saturday, we will have no wingers, so you'll
Right.
enjoy that. But yeah, there's definitely work to do for Everton as there is for Wolves.
Yeah, I think, like you said there, you guys are struggling with injuries. So I know you picked up another couple against Villa on Sunday, Calvert-Lewin, who he had that run of form a few years ago, didn't he? And he was phenomenal. I'm sure I had him in my fantasy Premier League as well. He was getting me all the points, but for
Yeah.
me, at least, he's just never really. And I know he struggled with injuries, but he's never really been able to regain and find that form again. Who else is out? What's the sort of squad status for a lot of these players going into Saturday's game?
Well, there's quite a lot of team news to tell you about. You're playing us at a very good time, to be honest. There's a lot of injuries. Alex Iwobi's just picked up an injury, so he won't be available. Dominic Calvert-Lewin's now got a face injury, which was completely not his fault. He gets a lot of criticism from parts of the fan base, but in
Yeah,
reality, he was so unlucky to clash heads with Emi Martinez, and now
yeah,
he probably won't play on Saturday unless he has a mask ready in time, which you almost certainly wouldn't think he would. Other than that, Seamus Coleman's still injured. On the wings, Dwight McNeil and Jack Harrison are out, so expect to see James Garner on the wing, which isn't his position at all. He's a central midfielder. Other than that, maybe even see Ashley Young on the wing because we actually have no other winger options. And then Neil Maupay will probably lead the line, who scored 1 goal all of last season. So look forward to
yeah.
that. I think if there's a chance for you to win a game in this early part of the season, then I think it's a good chance on Saturday.
Yeah, for the Wolves fans, I'll flag my team up on the screen now. I think we'll probably have some changes. I think the back four and goalkeeper will be the same with Sarr, Kilman, and Dawson as the centre halves with Semedo and Ait Nouri. I think Lamina and João Gomez will keep their plays. Obviously, Nunes, who is linked with a move away from the club, is suspended. And I think Hwang would probably come in for him, and I'd probably put Pablo Sarabia in for Fabio Silva. So Hwang, Sarabia, Neto, and Cunha probably is the number 9. Ellis, I know you mentioned a lot of players there that probably will start, but I think defensively for you guys as well, it's been a bit of a nightmare. I spoke to another podcast and he was talking about Michael Keane and his reputation within the fan base. And I spoke to you on your preview about a record that I'd seen between him and when Michael Keane and Tarkowski played together. Everton's record's not great. So, in your opinion, do you think he starts Saturday? Do you think he deserves to start? And if not, what would be your sort of best 11 available for Saturday's game?
Well, I am actually positive for the weekend, although it doesn't sound it so far. I am still positive. I'm trying to be anyway, but the defense is something that's really showing up, especially at the weekend. There's a real problem for Everton.
Yeah,
Michael Keane, he's been here for 7 years now, and he's never really settled into being the defender we really hoped he'd be when we bought him for 30 million. And he's a player that he always has a mistake in him, and he's a massive confidence player. So when it's not going well from him, it's like when it rains, it pours for him, really.
mm,
There's a young player, Jared Bramthwaite, I'm sure you've heard of,
yeah,
who we're really hoping will come into the team at the weekend. He's come back from a loan at PSV, and I'm really hoping he'll start because it's just that freshening up that we need in the defence. Because that defence that played against Villa, there needs to be some changes made to it because it leads goals so easily and so many individual errors that it just can't happen again. So for me, the defence, I'd be looking at Patterson, bringing Mikalenko back in, hopefully moving Ashley Young to the wing so he would still play. And then I'd start with Tarkowski and Bramthwaite and just leave Keane out of this because, to be honest, you need to take players out of the spotlight when they're not doing well. And it's not really good for him to be playing at the minute.
yeah. Fabio Silva was out on loan last year at PSV as well. So him and Bramthwaite, I'm sure will know each other quite well and what the strengths and weaknesses are. So I'm sure he made, if it wasn't his debut, it was one of his very early games, Bramthwaite, against Wolves. It was during COVID, I think. I'm sure he gave away a free kick or penalty, which led to scoring or even scored an own goal. I think it was a bit of a disastrous game for the young lad, to be fair. But again, we spoke on your channel list about that midfield battle. Do you think that's the strongest area for Everton? Who are the players that Wolves really need to be looking out for on Saturday?
Well, midfield is probably our strongest area at the moment, just purely because we don't score goals. And as of last week, we leak a lot of them as well. So midfield on paper is definitely the strongest. You've got Amadou Onana, who has struggled so far, but he's a unit. He's a big player. He's got all the attributes to be a top midfielder, but he's not quite reached that level yet. We do have to remember he is quite young.
Yeah,
Idrissa Gueye, he's a defensive midfielder, of course, and he hasn't quite been what you'd think Idrissa Gueye does for in recent games anyway. Maybe his legs are starting to go perhaps, but those two can be good players. And if James Garner plays centrally, I think he'd give you something to worry about and he would keep things ticking over for us and help us actually have a bit more control on the game. I think players to look out for, it'll be interesting to see how Arnaut Danjuma does. Probably our biggest threat at the moment and a player that has a lot of talent. Of course he does. He
Yeah.
played well at Villarreal, and it didn't work out for him at Tottenham. But from the glimpses that we saw when he came on against Aston Villa, he's a player that just wants to make things happen. And as well as him, you've got young Lewis Dobbin, who may feature, who also wants to make things happen. So hopefully I'm relying on them two to really just give us that impetus and push forward, because they're the brave ones in the team attacking wise.
Yeah, I think the midfield battle will be interesting. We've looked good going forward, and that's what is giving me encouragement going into this game. But I know Mario Lemina and João Gomez will have their work cut out, and it will be a really intriguing midfield battle. A couple of sort of quick questions, Ellis. If there was one Wolves player from this current squad you could take to improve Everton, who would it be?
It's an interesting one. I'd probably go with Max Kilman, because he's a
Oh,
defender,
okay,
and
yeah,
having a defender who is capable would be really useful at the minute. Maybe as well Mateus Cunha, from what I've seen. I certainly wouldn't pay the 50 million that you guys have been forced to pay, but that's probably a bit of a damaging one for you guys. But against Manchester United, he was very, very crucial to your team, and the way he carried the ball, and he just cut through that United midfield at times, and he had a couple of shots, and I think it will come for him. He's a good player, and Max Kilman, he's a steady centre back for me, so that's what we need at the moment.
yeah. I can't remember. I asked the Brighton on the Brighton one yesterday. Last week, sorry, and he really struggled to pick out a Wolves player that he'd have. But I mean, Brighton have
A
got
Brighton
they've
fan
got
though, isn't
quality.
it?
Yeah, they got quality all over the pitch really as well. And then on the sort of flip side of that, is the one player from the Everton team that you could probably think would play for a top 4 team or could play for a top 4 team at the moment?
Well, that's a difficult one at the moment. I think Jordan Pickford is the standout there, and he's a player that is underappreciated by the majority of the footballing world. To be honest, he's come on so much from when he was younger, and he had a lot of mistakes in him, and he was a bit erratic. I think that's kind of stuck with him, that reputation, and because he is quite a character as well, really.
Yeah.
So I think he could get into a team in the top 6, but I don't think he will now because of his age. But younger players looking at, I think Amadou Onana will go on to bigger and better things, and it will take time. I hope that this season can be a breakout season for him. I think Jared Bramthwaite will get a big move, but as of now, we don't have a lot of players kind of at that level just yet, but players that could be in the future for certain.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed. Fortunes for both teams pick up Ellis, because both Wolves and Everton are both good clubs, great fan bases, big clubs. Both were in European football not so long ago, and for some reason, the last couple of years, we've been sort of down here and struggling. So I'm hoping fortunes pick up for us both. I gave a 1-0 score prediction, a very, very close game, I think. But I think Wolves will just about edge it. But what do you reckon going into the game?
I'll go with 1-0, but the other way. I'll
Yeah.
go with 1-0 to Everton. I think that there is only going to be one goal in the game, because neither team looks like scoring at the moment, because they just can't put the chances away. So I think whoever gets that first goal wins the game. It's going to be so crucial, and it's definitely not going to be 3 goals in the game like there was last year, but I just hope it's nothing like last year with that late 8-0 winner.
Yeah, I mean, for our sake, I hope it sort of is with less stress, obviously. But yeah, at least before we finish off, where can people find you and the channel if they wish?
So I'm at Ellis Nordoff on Twitter, and then the Toffee Blues YouTube channel, and also A Game of Two Halves. Two Halves LSR on Twitter is my podcast as well. So give that a watch and check me out.
No, brilliant, Ellis. I really appreciate you jumping on Talking Walls, and apart from Saturday, all the best for the rest of the season.
You too, mate. All the best to Wolves. Wolves are a great club, I will say that. A massive club, and a club that deserve to be in the Premier League.
No, appreciate that, man. All the best. See you soon.
See you soon.